What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Craving Wild podcast. This week's episode is going to be a little bit different than the previous episodes. We had Chad Hodge on, and he is a turkey hunting guru and also a phenomenal storyteller. And this episode went on for like 3 hours. We just got into a really good conversation, and it just kept going and going and going. Unfortunately for us, we all had to get up and go turkey hunting the next day, so we were all kind of feeling a little rough. But this one is a very, very good episode. So we're actually going to split this one in half, just because right around the midway point, the conversation switches from more kind of storytelling and situations to more turkey tactics, equipment, stuff of that nature. So we're going to separate this. The first half is going to be more of the stories, and then the second half is going to be more of the tips and tactics. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Oh, and we also didn't do the intros until 40 minutes in just because we were so into what was going on. So on this episode, you have myself, Dan, you have Antonio, Eddie, and then, of course, the special guest this week is Chad Hodge. Chad is a phenomenal turkey hunter. That's what he does. Like he's a bird guy, and you'll get that from this episode. So I hope you guys enjoy this week's and stay tuned for we're going to release this one the part 2 on Thursday. So only a couple of days you got to wait. Podcast land, it's just going to be the next episode. So I appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys, all of the love that we have been getting from the Instagram account and all that stuff. So we really do appreciate that, and we'll it helps us put out this content. It helps us stay up late, get through all the long stuff just to put out more episodes, especially when everybody enjoys it. So thanks again, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Help kind of segue into it because the meat and potatoes, the best part of this kind of was just fast and flowing because that's how it all went down. So I went to my original starting spot, and there was a guy out there. It's just absolutely just pouring rain. And I sit and I watch and I'm listening, and and I'm not going to go over the top. I'm just going to sit and watch, because hunting in Florida, the birds in Florida, hunting there and hunting here are two completely different things. There the birds might gobble a little bit on the roost, and then they hit the ground and they don't make a sound again. And the more calling you do, the more you're hurting yourself a lot of the time. So there you have a tendency to be real slow, real patient, and let the hunt come to you. And here it's kind of like you got other guys jumping out of the woods and coming down on zip lines and crawling out of manholes and people everywhere. So you're less turkey hunting and you're more man managing. And so if you can cut them all out of the equation and actually go one-on-one with a bird, then that's what turkey hunting around here is. Unless you have buku private land, then you get to go have that nice the authentic turkey experience. But a lot of people don't have that opportunity, and public land there's great public land out there, and it's just for some reason I think deep down inside I like the fight, I like the carnage, and that's just what we go with. I grew up down in that area. I was born there, and a long time ago, years ago, all throughout like bird, all up and down, there was all these towns and all these buildings and all these things that my family lived there. And now it's all been, destroyed since the whole dam project. And so, I just feel a connection to the place. So I like to be there. I like to hunt there. And I know what Saturday means. I know.
Yeah.
And
we all
there.
know. We all hunt here at that spot one day or another one. Mm-hmm. I was just actually telling him about one of the spots you took me. There was just a bunch of it was like a road with a bunch of houses, and it's no longer there. And you took me. I was like, "Where the hell did this asphalt road came out?"
Yeah, my grandparents had a house there. My mom, grew up there, and I'm naturally not going to say where all these places are. I'm not going to hand it to people and let them go out there and do it.
Yeah.
That's another difference between here and Florida. Okay, in Florida, in the South, in Alabama, Georgia, nobody talks about it at all. If you see them wearing camo, okay, that's a turkey hunter. You don't ask them about turkeys. You don't ask them if they heard any gobbling. They don't say nothing at all. Hey, did you hear any birds? Birds? What are you talking about? No. Maybe they'll post a picture of one bird just to show everybody they still got the juice. But then you're not going to see that second bird. You're not going to see that third bird. You're not going to see anything else after that. They disappear. And after the season's over, oh, look at all these birds I shot. They don't say, oh, yeah, there's 10 birds down here. No, it don't work that way. Here, people are a lot more giving with their information, and we butt heads on that a lot. You meet some stranger, like, oh, yeah, we hunted down here, and there's a whole bunch of birds gobbling down by this field and over there. And I have a massive problem with that. But then I get called selfish. Oh, come on, brother. You got to share the wealth, So anyway, the person was out there. They kind of jacked things up. My uncle was hunting up the road. He said he heard one shot. And so he wanted to know how long I planned on toughing it out. So I told him to drop down, come down, take a look, see what he saw, see where the guys were, and I'd work my way out to him. And that's what I did. So we met up back at the parking area. I hopped in the truck with him, and he said, let's take a run down to that major other area over there. And Antonio knows where that major other area is because you've had plenty of carnage down there, and we pheasant hunt down that way and stuff. And so we make a run down there, and we go down. And the first thing I notice is there's not a bunch of cars there. There's not a bunch of vehicles. There's nothing.
Is that by the striper spot? Is that the same area that we're talking about?
No.
I grew up hunting where you're at too, so
Right.
which I'm surprised we haven't bumped into each other. We might have, but I was just tall back then.
The spot he was talking about, where his uncle got stopped with police, is where we killed the first turkey. My first turkey.
Oh, okay.
That big field right
Yep.
there. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the other area is it's where you almost like killed yourself the one time and like broke your ankle and all that jazz.
Stress fracture on my foot.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that long gnarly road that's near there.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, so we go cruising down that way. It's that place where you told me you saw those birds.
Yeah.
the other
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like this whole code system we have. Hidden signals.
You hunted that spot with me too. By the way.
Yeah?
Oh yeah.
Don't. And if you say something you think might be like questionable, just like sign me and I'll write the time down and then we'll eliminate it.
We'll eliminate it.
Well, see, the funny part is within my group, my gang, we have codes for every single spot. And we
so
can
do
use
we.
these names, we can use these spots, and this is like this book that's like the book of secrets. It's like 50 years
Bible.
old.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what I was saying about all the buildings that used to be there and all the people. We knew all the people who had all these houses, so we could say so and so's house and this house. And
That's that house.
I still haven't got the code yet. Like he tells me the codes, and then he'll be like, he'll come back from like for waterfowl, and he's like, "Oh, we're here." I'm like, "Which place is this again?" Because I can't.
You can't remember which one's which.
I can.
Yeah, and to me, that's what makes the whole experience so great. Is the fact that you have that, and it's something that like you bring people in and you teach them these things, but it's like you have to go through this vetting process. So you find out if this person's legit or not.
Right.
You bring them in, and then they bring 10 guys in there. They're like pinning it on X and sharing it on their stories and stuff, and you're like, all right, like I said. Here, it's one thing. In Florida, you'd end up in a 4-foot hole behind the Waffle House.
That's exactly what the dude yesterday was talking about. We did another major turkey hunter. And he's like, down in Alabama, like they don't fuck around with that.
Yes.
And he said they were pretty cool with that stuff too. Like they see somebody in the parking lot, like you don't go in that parking lot.
Right.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. But there's a lot of respect there. You know, it's okay.
And you're exactly right about that. There's guys that like the old schoolers and OGs, and it's like a community, and we travel around to these events, these turkey calling contests, and all these different things, and you learn to know each other through the years, and we'll tell each other. We can say there's a gobbler in this swamp right here, and I'm planning on, and nobody from that group will go there. That's just how it works, because you go and hunt somebody's bird, or you go and tear up somebody's honey hole, and you get cut out of the mix, and that's that.
Oh yeah.
And that's a tough road to
You're
hoe.
blacklisted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You don't get the invites to the Bass Pro event, or you don't get the invite, and it's a bad deal. So, this whole industry and everything, I came into it when before there was Instagram, before there was Snapchat, any of that stuff. MySpace came out, and it was like
The top 8.
Yeah. And when I came in, it was like all the pros it'll be like a poster on the wall at the post office, and you're like, oh man, let's go see what he has to say. And it was just real old school stuff. And you'd come to like this turkey event, and you'd learn some techniques and tricks, and and then all of a sudden, those people knew what they were talking about. Those were like the guys. They were like legends. And so then when Facebook came out and Instagram came out, it became real easy for people to look like they were pros and look like they know what they're talking about. All the glam and everything, and a dead turkey on a tailgate. You can put 20 dead turkeys on a tailgate, but that doesn't prove you've got the juice. The word of mouth of the guy at Ace Hardware, that's the juice right there.
Yeah.
When you walk into the store and everybody starts whispering, that's the juice. And when I was a kid, the guys would whisper and talk to each other. They'd never give you information. And you wanted to be the guy that was respected enough to join that conversation. So that's what you work towards. Now it's just handed to people. If they got fancy cameras, if they got fancy stuff and filters.
Or boobs.
Right. That goes a long way too.
That helps. I've been working on mine.
So let's backtrack now. Now that we know, because we got to get back to the best part here. All right. So do we all pretty much know where I'm talking about, this area?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. All right. So we come driving down this road, and we didn't see anybody there. We're driving along. I'm talking to him, and we're looking. I look up on the bank, and there's a longbeard right there, 15 yards away, and there's another one and another one right there. So with the ruling on it, this is something that just boggles my mind with Pennsylvania, is you're not allowed to locate them from a vehicle. You can't use a vessel to locate them. So now you have to cover your eyes and walk, and you run the risk of perjuring yourself even telling a story like this. Okay,
Yeah.
oh well, we saw these birds, so we drove down the road.
I didn't know that
no.
was a law.
Yeah, you're not allowed to locate them from a vessel. That was a discussion that was had at the end of all this, because that became an important part of this whole free for all.
Oh, shit.
So we're like, oh, so there's some birds there. All right, well, let's leave the area completely, and we didn't see those birds, and we'll go hunt some random other birds, and we'll see what happens. And so that's what we did. We drove away like good legal citizens, drove completely out of there, and we went and started fresh somewhere else. And through our walks and through our travels, we ended up in that same area again. And so we dropped down, and we were about 50 yards off, and I got him set up in a nice big tree, and I was set up about 20 yards to his right, and I waited, and I threw a mouth call in, and I hit that mouth call, and like crazy.
You were extremely good at that.
Thank you. And so we're looking at within 100, 150 yards or so, like straight out in front of us, and so that was good. I like that, because I like when birds hammer right off the bat like that, and so. But I don't put all my eggs in that basket. I wait a little bit. I check their temperature again. And so we gave it a couple minutes, and I just clucked a few times, and I just rocketed out a couple of cuts, and just one right there. Okay, same spot. And ideally, you want them closer. You're hoping that it's 50 yards closer or whatever, but no, he was over there. So, okay, we're dealing with this, and that's what we're going to do. Now, this is where, my uncle's killed a few birds in his day. He hasn't killed as many as me. He started hunting a lot later than me as far as spring gobbler goes. He's the best deer hunter I know. Hands down, he's the best deer hunter I know. He's the best trout fisherman I know. But with turkey, his brother was always a turkey guy, and he was always just kind of coming along. But, since he retired, he's gotten to kill, a few more birds. He's hunted with me. He's learned a lot with me. And he starts killing some birds. He comes with me, and we kill those impossible birds that can't be killed and stuff. And then it's like, oh, we sure worked them over. And so he's got confidence. And that's good. I always want people to have confidence. But so now we're dealing with this bird. And here comes Florida creeping in. I want these birds to come. And we're going to call these birds in. We're going to, hopefully get a shot at them. And and I know it's Saturday. I know the risk of what can happen, but there's no worse feeling than having that bird in the hand and doing something stupid and blowing it all. So I'd rather just wait it out and play it out. So I'm hanging tight, and all of a sudden I hear gravel. I look up. Here comes a vehicle driving by. Park ranger. So he comes flying down the road and he stops and he stops and he's sitting up there. And I know he sees him. And I said, they got to be right in the middle of the road. They got to be. So he sits there for a minute and we're watching. And then he goes. He drives down the road. And I heard him crunching along some more. And as soon as he crunched a little bit more, I bounce checked him again. Pop, pop, ow! There he is. All right. Still over there in that same vicinity, but down a little bit. So I'm fine. I'm patient. He's cool. He comes swinging around me. He comes to the other side. He wants to get a little bit farther away from the road. He wants to totally be, within legal distance and whatnot, because a lot of people know you can't shoot from the road. The rule is kind of sketchy. It says you can shoot after alighting from the vehicle and going 25 yards. Okay. Well, everybody interprets that as 25 yards into the woods, but you read the book, it doesn't say that. You could walk 25 yards straight down the line.
Yeah.
That's the way that young Chad, teenage Chad interpreted it. And, because I always had to be like a lawyer about everything, I had to break it down and overthink it. So,
But you have to.
Yeah.
Especially if you're hunting a lot of different states, you got to really cross some T's and dot them I's.
Right. And, and when it comes down to an argument in the woods sometimes, and that's what ends up happening is it turns into this like a courtroom right there in the middle of a parking lot. Mm-hmm. And so we know the bird's there and they're in the vicinity, but now it sounds like it's down farther. And it's a little bit more open than I wanted it to be. And I didn't want to make some daring swashbuckling move. Listen, it's opening day. We don't need to get into the stuntman stuff, the diving, the crawling, the Superman dives. We don't have to do all that. These birds are unmolested. They're all left alone. This is the reason why you hunt opening week. And so, I'm just trying to sort it out a little bit. And I knew there was more than one, but I only heard one gobble those couple of times. And in my experience, I've had that one that gobbles, and he's the one that you cue in on. And then there's the other ones that are sneaking up right over there, and you see them running like hell because you're so worried about the one that's the loudmouth over here. Yeah. So I want to sort all these things out. And again, these aren't the things he thinks about. He doesn't think like that. They just all gobble. They just all do this, and this is it. So he gets a little tunnel vision on things. And so, I try to teach him some things through time. And we know people that they already know this stuff. In their mind, they know it all. So, you're trying to teach a little bit of that stuff as you go. And so these birds are over there, and I'm just trying to give a little bit more time. And the thing is, I want the park ranger to come back and leave before anything else happens, because I know when you got two guns on birds, it turns into a free-for-all. And now when you start getting, Mr. Green Jeans involved and stuff, it can get pretty whacked out. So I'm hoping he comes crunching along. Well, he doesn't. And he doesn't. So I'm just starting to contemplate making this move, and I hear more gravel crunching. And I look up, and here comes this little silver SUV cruising down the road.
Oh, geez.
And it cruises down the road, and it stops in the exact same spot on the hill. And I see brake lights, and I can hear music, boom, 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 boom. And then it drives up, and it kind of like disappears a little bit over the hill. And all of a sudden here, boom, boom!
Oh, my God.
And so he jumps up, and he's like, oh, way to go, guys. Nice road hunting. Oh. And I stood up, and I put my seat up, and I thought about it for a minute, and I said no. So I go storming up the hill. I get on the road. I look down the road. I see their car sitting down there. So I don't know what he's doing, because at this point in time, I'm like, I can see steam coming off my clothes because the rage is cooking. So he gets up to the road. I'm already halfway down to these guys. I storm down there. I go down there, and I see them, and they looked up, and they kind of tried to hide behind the bushes. They pulled their car over to the left side, and the one kid was like hiding. And I run up there, and I'm like, what are you doing? What? And I'm not gonna say everything I said. There was some profanity laced tirade in there, but you also got to mind that everybody has guns.
Yeah.
Everybody has guns.
Yeah.
But these guys I'm talking about, these old schoolers, those guys were like, I call them the last hard men. Those guys didn't mess around. And one thing in life that you didn't do was you didn't get between them and their women, them and their money, and them and their turkeys. And it was just like that.
That's a fucking thing to say.
And so
T-shirt.
So I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, I saw you, and he saw you too. And then he's like, oh, I'm sorry, oh. He's too like they were either in 12th grade or maybe they're freshmen in college. And one of them had a camouflage Philadelphia Phillies hat on. The other one had his flat-billed Sika hat on.
Oh, jeez.
And they're standing there, and they got shotguns, and there's this dead turkey laying right on the side of the road, and he's all blown to hell, and there's feathers laying all over the place.
Right on the road.
Right there, right on the left side of the road. And he's like got handfuls of feathers in his hands and stuff, and he's trying to like stuff them in his pockets. And I'm like, listen here, you dumb mother effers. Ah! And he's like, oh, I thought you could shoot from the road. I said, no.
Like rule number 1, you can't do.
Yeah. I said, in Maine, this isn't Maine. In Maine, you can stand with 1 foot on the road and shoot from your vehicle. I was like, you have to be 25 yards after alighting from the vehicle. And I'm like, you're shooting out the windows. I said, there's probably spent shells inside your damn car.
It smells like gunpowder in the car. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, I'm not trying to break the laws. It's too late.
You already did.
You don't have to be trying. You did.
There's 20 pounds of breaking law right there.
And
oh my God.
I turn around and my uncle's still like 100 yards back there. He was hanging back, and I knew why he was doing that because he was afraid he was going to be shooting and fists and all that stuff. So he was playing the role of like the witness just in case it started going in that direction. And so I mean I'm laying into these guys and I'm explaining to them. I say, listen. I fly up here. I said, I grew up here. I said, these are my woods. I know these woods. I pay twice as much as all of you for all of my things. And I come here and I hunt legit. And I sit down here and I hunt legit. And then have some clowns come driving down the road and shoot out of their windows. I said, that's not going to work for me. And I said, I bet you don't even know there's a park ranger down the road. And I said, he'll be back here any minute. And he's like, I'm sorry. I said, you don't have to apologize to me. I said, you apologize to your dad or whoever when that park ranger takes your car and your guns and you lose your licenses for the rest of your life. And I'm like screaming like in the middle of the road. And they're like, ah.
And what's going on?
And so all the while I'm like, where the hell is this park ranger at? You know, what is going on here? So they're like wigging out, and the kid's like,
yeah, when you want them, it'll take forever to get there.
Yeah. Well, this kid's like grabbing the bird, and he's like opening the window of the truck, and he's trying to stuff it in there. And I'm like, what? You're not even gonna tag it? It's like you're not gonna have a tag. You're gonna add that to your charges too. And so he's like, yeah, I'm about to fill it out. I was like, what are you shooting from your vehicle for anyway? He's like, no. We saw these birds, and I stepped out, and I loaded my gun, and I fired 1 shot, and I loaded it again. I shot it again. I was like, you're lying. I said, I saw you. I was right there. And so he's like, oh, no, I swear. My dad's a police officer, and my grandpa, you know, and
my
I
uncle's a lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah. and you know, and I'm trying to drag this out for this ranger to come, you know. And then I said, you know what? I don't even want to stand here with you guys. I said, you guys broke so many laws. I don't even want to be attached to this. So I'm like, you know, going to get out of here, and you guys just do whatever you got to do. All right. But he's coming, and that's that. And so all while I'm talking, I see 2 more guys like come up off the road. And they're standing down there. I'm like, where'd these guys come from? So, and, you know, so finally now, you know, my uncle comes driving up. And he's like, "Not good, boys. Not good." You know,
that guy.
And
the witness came out.
And so now he gets involved, and I knew. I was like, you know, because the best part of this guy is he has this group of people, and he calls all them, and he gives them a report of the day, and you get to listen to the story over and over and over again. And it's like watching the news. It's like Sports Center, and you get to hear the highlights of it. And so, you know, and I knew that the story's gonna be like, yeah, I came down there and we just gave those guys hell, you know. And so he's telling the story. He's like, yeah, Chad marched down there and he was just wigging out on these guys. He gave them the business. And so at this point, I got their license number and we got in a truck and we drove away. And they started really hustling. So we go and talk to these 2 other guys, and they're like, oh, that was crazy. We saw these guys. You know, we roosted these birds last night, and we were working on them, He's like, they never gobbled one time, and then like all of a sudden they did, and I was like, what? That's coincidental. These guys have been hunting them all morning, and they didn't gobble till I showed up. Okay, so they saw these birds go up, and they were hunting them, and they're like, yeah, we had our decoys out on the power lines. I'm like, there's those decoys again.
Yep.
There they are. And so we're talking to these guys, and we're like, yeah, that was messed up. It's like, we're going down to the ranger right now, and we're going to tell him. And it's like, so you're welcome to come down with us. Like, yeah, we're going to get those guys. So they're messing around with their stuff. We go driving down the road. And we're driving down the road, and we're driving, and we get all the way down to the end, the very end. And you get down to the end, and I'm looking, I see the ranger's truck sitting down there, and it's in mud up to its axles. And I see him standing there, and and he's just kind of with his hands on his hips, and so we hop out, and we were like, oh, I thought you were having your lunch or something, but I can see you're not. And he's like, yeah. So he says, do you need some help? And he's like, yeah, I called my partner, and he's coming down. I only got a 20-foot strap, and I mean, it was so greasy and so muddy that the 20-foot wasn't gonna cut it. And so Michael's like, yeah, I got some chains in the back of the truck, and we can help you. So right at this point, the other ranger comes, and I love the fact that he came because I know he passed some guys when they were up there. And so we start telling this ranger exactly what happened. He starts writing the information down. He starts doing this stuff, and he gets a hold of a game warden friend of his, and he passed the license and all that stuff. So so now it switched from the gunfight to this recovery mission. And so we back, the other ranger comes, and he has a 20-foot strap. So now we take the chains, and we rig up this elaborate setup, and they hook up together, and now the ranger's like pulling the other one out, and he's got 4-wheel drive, there's mud flying everywhere, he's bouncing, and he gets out. So now he's out. We unhook and everything, and he's like, man, thanks so much, thanks for helping us. And he's like, you earned yourself a get out of jail free card, and he hands me like his card. It's like, well, this would be handy. And the funny thing is, like, I could have used it about 20 minutes ago, because then I could have went as far as I wanted to on that deal. I'll just turn this right back to you, because that one guy's all stitched up. Whoopsie daisy. And where I come from, no matter what you do, no matter how bad it is, as long as you say whoopsie daisy at the end, it's all okay. So
makes sense. That's another T-shirt right there. That's 2 T-shirts within 20 minutes. Oh man, that's the opening day.
Yeah, it's opening day. We went for a ride after that, and it was pouring, and and it was still pretty early out. It was like 9 o'clock at this point, and we still had a lot up for grabs. And we kind of went and just did some recon and just kind of got our act together, and but it was pretty quiet after that.
Yeah, that spot is so sketchy, and I hate going to that spot on any opening days. We went with your dad on Bear, and never again. Yeah, because it's so scary, dude. Yeah. There's too many people in there, and I'm like, I don't want to get shot by anybody. I tried to stay away from any sort of like conflict. So if that would have happened to me, I would have been like, fuck.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have run to those guys. I'd be like, nah, man, I got an accent. I can't be doing that.
I only go there during the week. I'll never go there on the weekend.
Yeah. It's rough.
And we know that, but on the same token, it's like you only get that one crack at it.
Yep.
And where they haven't been just totally marauded. So if you can catch them birds just right, I hate the fact that it's until noon only for the first couple of weeks. Because you're left with a tough choice. Do you want to hunt the noon only segment where all the cats are out there and then wait for all day? But then half the birds have been mowed down. Half of them have gone through situations like that. They're all whacked out. Or do you want to go for the opener and catch some fresh ones? Yeah. And it's a tough gamble. And I usually lean on going for the all-day segment. But, the pandemic really just jacked everything up. When in 2020, things were nuts because everybody was like, not going to work, and everybody was just hanging out, and they were getting cabin fever. So they're like, oh, let's try this turkey hunting thing out. Yeah. That's the only thing we can do. And there was people everywhere.
Yep.
And so I went for the opener during that, and it was like crazy. So then I was thinking, all right, we fast forward to next year, and we come the next year, and I said, I'm going to go for the all day segment. go for the all-day segment, thinking people are going to be back to work. Everybody's going to be chilled out.
Yeah.
No, there was more people in the next year than, and it came down to the last hour, the last free-for-all, and I'm working on this bird in this little apple orchard, and everything's cool. I'm in the last hour before I got to go to the airport and fly out, and all of a sudden some cat comes driving down the road in his truck, and he starts box calling out the window. And that turkey ran away. And here comes Chad running out of the woods. What are you doing? Ah! And he peels out and takes off. And so, it's just, that's part of the deal. You just have to accept that, because there's that moment where when you get it right and everything works out, it's the most amazing feeling in the world.
Yeah.
And that's how turkey hunting is. It can drag you through the lowest depths of hating life, or it can be the most amazing feeling, I just won the Daytona 500 and everybody's pouring Gatorade on my head.
My wife is my second alarm for turkey season, and she knows if she don't get me up that I'm going to be pissed for the rest of the day. Because that could have been that day. That freaking day that all the whole stars would have lined up, and that's what irritates me when I miss a day, just because I'm I just went like 28 days of just straight up hunting.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean when you say that when the things, it all comes together, it makes you feel like you just won the lottery.
And we work hard for that. And the thing is that for me, success isn't an option. If I'm not killing birds, and if I'm not giving these guys the photographs and the things that they need to post on their feeds and their different stuff, then there's that other guy that is, and he can be shooting on private property, whatnot, and all of a sudden you start seeing his face popping up on everything, and all of a sudden he starts getting the lion's share. And and that's not what motivates me. What motivates me, it's like anything else. Any tournament I ever entered, any competition, didn't matter if it was football, baseball, basketball, paintball. I used to play tournament paintball, and I traveled all over there playing that. And they'd always ask, hey, what's the prize package for this event? I don't know. I couldn't tell you, because I didn't care about the prizes. My prize was seeing our name at the top of the scoring pylon, and that's all there was to it. And, and me growing up and me coming up, it wasn't about anything else other than you wanted people to say, now that guy's a turkey hunter. That guy's a damn good duck hunter. That's the guy. When you show up, you want people to know things are going to die. You want that reputation.
It's a pride thing.
And that's what it is.
It's pride.
Now, pride, drags you, through the gates of hell and everything else. And pride is I guess, one of the 7 deadly sins. But on the same token, it's that extra motivation you need that says, I'm going over that next ridge. Because, they said, Chad Hodge hunts in the rain and the snow and lightning and everything else, and he wouldn't let anything turn him around. And
I had a guy tell me, I hunted a thunderstorm one time, I killed a bird that morning, and I went to the shop that day, came in to he saw my post on Facebook or whatever, he's like, I got totally different respect for you now, man. And that made me feel like...
Yeah.
That's good.
And that's all it is you just, you want to know you gave your best, because you get down in the last few days of the season and you don't have a bird yet, or, whatnot. And you think about that day you slept in, or you think about that day you quit early. And, and I was talking about the all day segment. It's not that I want to kill birds at 5 o'clock at night. It's not that I think I'm going to, catch one at, it's, how many birds have I caught at 11 o'clock that gobbled, and they're 200 yards across this field, and they're coming, and next thing you know, it's 11:57, and he's 70 yards away, and now you got a real tough decision to make.
Yeah, and you didn't have your get out of jail free card yet, so yeah.
Yeah, and TSS didn't exist back then, and things like that. So, but then it always comes down to one thing: checkers or wreckers. It comes down to the fact that this is going to happen one way or the other. This story is not going to end with, so I packed my stuff up and I headed over the hill, No, it's going to be grisly. It's going to be carnage and mayhem, because that's what people want to see. People go to the races for 2 things. They want to see the winners, and they want to see the crashes.
Yep.
But if you can give them a crash while winning, then that's what's going to play on the highlight reels, and that's what people are going to remember.
Absolutely.
So that just ends up becoming your persona, and then you have to be that forever. And that's
I think that fear of like the fear of being a poser just keeps you going. Like you set the bar, and you just got to keep maintaining that bar.
Yeah.
And like that bar's your reputation at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you don't want to wake up and like in fear that people like you don't want people to think your bar is coming down, right? You never want your bar to come down.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because people you wonder, is it better to be a has been or a never was?
Right.
And that fear of becoming the has been. If you've got the juice and if you're really that good, even on your worst day, be better than 90% of the rest of them.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of people in particular, and Antonio knows who I'm talking about.
I don't.
Yeah. And I watch these guys, and they get all the credit, and they get oh, they're so great, and they get all the fanfare and the love, and they're the biggest posers I've ever seen in my life, and it always chafed me because I knew that my ability, my skill, everything was on a whole, just not just a different zip code, but a different state than these guys. But that's what skill is. It's mastery. It's not just I can kill turkeys, I can call turkeys, I can do this. It's I can master myself, and I can have the patience. And I'm not going to let the fact that I want to kill a bird and beat this guy to have my picture on Instagram before him, I'm going to allow that whole thing to change how I approach this bird right here, and I totally destroy it. So there's a lot of self mental things that go into it. And I miss those days before there was social media and all that stuff. I really do, because that was pure. To me, pure was when everybody was shooting lead. And I really liked the last year because shells were so hard to come by. They were like impossible. And all of a sudden, these guys couldn't get TSS. They couldn't get the heavy shot. They couldn't get the stuff. And so a lot of guys were having to shoot whatever they could find. And they were having to shoot lead, and they were having to shoot stuff. And that meant one thing: you got to call these birds in close.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you started seeing who the posers were and who was legit, because that bar, you can't kill them at 60 and 70 yards anymore.
You took that crutch away.
Yeah. And I liked that. There was just something about it. And so I just been kind of hanging on to that. I went up in my shot sizes a little bit. I kind of opened my patterns up a little bit, and I've just been doing it on purpose because it's like I said before. Those old school guys I respected coming up, they were shooting 4-shot, and they were shooting lead, and they were shooting 3.5-inch 12 gauges, and when things got tough, when things got crazy, you could go anywhere and you found 3.5-inch 12 gauges everywhere, because there was one reason: most people didn't have them, and the reason they didn't have them is because they were scared to shoot them. So if you had that 3.5, you could just walk into a store and buy shells like no big deal. And back in the late 80s and early 90s and stuff, that was like the biggest technology. 3.5. But now you got all these these elitists, and you got all these other people, they want to shoot 410s. They're like, my 410, I'll shoot this 410. I'm going the opposite direction with it.
What? I don't even have a 410.
We talked about this a couple times.
Yeah.
If it's a kid, if it's somebody that you're trying to get them into it to shoot a 410, that's fine. If you want to shoot a 410 just because you want to be better than everybody else,
It's because it's what's cool on the internet right now.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Why can't 3.5-inch 12 gauge monsters be cool?
Yeah.
Let's bring those babies back. Let's go shoot some birds with 6-shot again. Yeah. Instead of make America great again, let's make America 6-shot again.
I think it'll come back around. People will get sick of the 410 number 9 TSS,
Yeah.
and then we'll make our way back to the Nitro Magnum fucking Remington number 6s.
Copper plated.
Yep.
And that's just, to me, that's just what I want to see, because I want to see two guys at the Waffle House talking. I want to know that they were shooting 4s. I want to know they were shooting them hot rods. And that's why I work so hard patterning and working on these guns. I build these turkey guns, and I build on both ends of the spectrum, because I've every bird that I've ever missed, I've missed because I was shooting patterns that were as big as a walnut.
Yeah.
But see, I got sucked into that same thing.
Yeah.
We all got so concerned with how many pellets we could get in a 10-inch circle at 40 yards that we started choking these guns down. We started going smaller pellets. We started, getting into the science of things. We're digging into the ammunition companies, the engineers there. We're talking to them. We're talking to the choke tube manufacturers, the guys, and around the clock where we're coming up with these things. I'm shooting 400 and 500 shells at the patterning range, just so that I can get 500 pellets inside of a 10-inch circle, and then I do it. And now it's like, you guys on the internet like, oh, this is my pattern. You're like, oh, what? 360? Oh, check this out, brother. And then it's like throwing down the card on them. Boom, here's 400. And then some guy comes and so you're like, you know what? There's 550 pellets in this shell. I want 500 of them in that circle. And so in a 3-inch shell, that's a big ask. And now here we are doing it. And, and I reached a point where I was shooting a 640 constriction in my choke tube for my gun, and that's the tightest commercially produced one you can buy. And in a 640, and I was experimenting with like stepped ribs inside of them and all kinds of different stuff, and all of a sudden I'm watching 460 pellets, and I'll look at 482, and then you're creeping your way to it, and that's cool. And now you go out to hunt turkeys, and now here comes a bird, and he's at 30 yards, and you shoot and you miss him. And you shoot because you're so worried about 40 yards, you're not worried about 30. And then you go and shoot 30, and your pattern is literally like a walnut. And so now we have a new protocol. It's if the bird's under 30 yards, I'm aiming for the butt of his wing, just like I'm shooting a bow. And now, and when I was doing some different experimenting, and I would shoot these birds, and I shot one bird at 54 yards, and I hit him with 9s, and I hit him in the butt of the wing, and I had exit holes on the other side of his other wing, and this stuff just flew out the other side, and you could see feathers that came out from it.
Oh, shit.
And then this is the funny part is now we start experimenting with, wow, well, this TSS and 9s is vicious. Let's try these 7s out. And then it's like, man, the horsepower in these 7s. Let's see what 6s are like.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Have you ever seen TSS 6s on a shelf anywhere? No. Well, when you have the ability to have TSS 6s show up, there they are, and now it's like, well, just for fun, I wonder
Shits and giggles.
I wonder what some 5s would be like. And now you start realizing that you could kill a deer at almost 100 yards with number 5 shot. You start digging into some dark water there. You start getting into some sketchy territory. So, you open that portal and you're like, no, let's close this thing. Let's go the other way with it. And so, yeah, it's a lot of people, they don't do the science. They don't look into the science of it. They just want to go buy a box of shells and go out and shoot, and then that's that. And I do the work. I deal with the manufacturers. I'm sponsored by Heavy Shot, and with those guys since 2009, and I use True Lock choke tubes. I shoot Rite shotguns, and Rite shotguns. I do a lot of development work for them. I shoot prototypes for those guys. I've been using their guns from the get-go. True Lock was the first company that made choke tubes for those guns, and so I started working real closely with them. And that's how we built a real strong relationship. And then that allowed me to do things that I wouldn't ordinarily have been able to do. And that's what allowed me to experiment and test. And it's all because I wanted people to be able to message me and say, hey, Chad, I bought this. And, what do you think the best round for this would be? And I could say, hey, try this constriction. Hey, try that. Because I didn't want people going out having to buy 5 and 6 and 7 choke tubes. I didn't want them to have to go buy 5 boxes of shells that are $60, $70. So, I want people to be able to have the performance and not have to pay the big money for it. And the thing about that is they're going to remember, hey, that guy was square with me. That guy, he told me, and I'm going to support him and those companies because, they were cool with me. And I get messages and Instagram and whatnot from people all the time. And that's what it comes down to. It's not about how cool you look. It's not about what you kill. But on the same token, you do have to kill the stuff because are people going to believe, oh, yeah, this stuff really works if all it's just me and the sunset and me and my selfies and stuff. So
right.
It's a balance. You have to get it right. So
it's cool hearing, like, obviously you're tore up with turkeys, and your knowledge level of turkeys is much, much higher than most people. Now hearing you talk about, working with all these other companies to help other people try and get to that point.
Right.
It's really cool to see how that circle kind of starts to go around. Like, you're getting to that age now where it's more necessarily about helping other people versus helping yourself, because you've already been there and you've done that.
Yeah, and that's where it started out was up in Bangor, outside of Bangor in the 90s, there used to be, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that archery range that's over there, Bear Swamp. The little wooden walls, and it has a little archery range there. And it's over by Mincy Lake. And every summer in July, they had Bow Fest. It was July, August. It was somewhere in that neighborhood. They had Bow Fest. And it was this big, just crazy, cool thing where they had 3D archery shoots all out through the woods. They had a little grove, and they had 2D. The company Spence's used to make these like 2-dimensional foam targets of like elk and bear, and they just were flat pieces of foam, and they airbrushed them to make them look like 3D. And and you look them up. They're cool, man. And there'd be like 40 of them. There'd be a groundhog, and there'd be all this cool stuff, and you'd go out there and you just would shoot at these various targets. And and they had that range. They had the little ping pong ball blowing, and yep. You paid $10, and if you hit the ping pong ball, you won, the pot of what they collected up to that point. And there was a tent, and there was, it was all kinds of archery stuff for sale. And there was a dude, he was an old man, and he had this like mullet, and he had these glasses and this big bushy mustache, and he was doing a little turkey hunting seminar over on a picnic table. And so, I went there for the whole day. Me and my friends went there for the whole day, and so we wanted to experience everything. So we're like, well, let's listen to what this guy said. And so he's like teaching how to do a mouth call, and he's like calling a little bit and stuff. And I thought, man, this is so cool that this guy's like teaching us these things.
Yeah.
And so I knew that one day it would be cool to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so, I always remembered that. And so as the years went by, you'd see other little turkey events, little things. And then there's Dick Kirby from Quaker Boy, and he was like the godfather of turkey hunting, and he traveled all over the place. And he every little small town, every little place, he always was stopping to do seminars. And he reminded me of the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead, the band, they wanted to bring their music to everybody, so they played in every hall, every fairgrounds, everywhere. Yeah. And you hear these stories from people, and they're like, yeah, we saw the Dead at the West End Fairgrounds back in 1972. And that's what Dick Kirby did, was he brought turkey hunting to the people. So when, in the future, as I was killing my own turkeys, I was using Quaker Boy stuff to start with, and the opportunity came to me to represent them and to help them develop calls and to do that stuff. It was a great honor, because I remembered that guy at the picnic table, and I remember how he made me feel. And I remember, when I go and I do a seminar, I do a clinic, or I do something, them guys are like, I'm the best around, and those guys, and people always remember how you make them feel. And I always want people to not be afraid to come to an event, because they're going to be made to feel stupid, because they're going to be made to feel like they don't know anything. I want them to come, and I want them to walk away. If they buy a Quaker Boy box call or a pot call or something, that's great. But if they don't, but they have that sticker that I gave them, and they go home and they put that on the refrigerator, somewhere out there is that Quaker Boy sticker on somebody's window. It's somewhere, and they'll remember that day they came and that guy was cool to them, and that and that to me is what I like.
Yeah.
And on that same token, when you represent these companies, you can't be out there being this a-hole. You can't be out there doing that stuff. So to a degree, me marching down the middle of a dirt road, wigging out at some guys, every story has a hero and every story has a villain.
Yeah.
But the thing, who is who, comes down to who's telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
And were them guys going to slide? No. It wasn't going to happen. It's just, so, but it was a verbal. We talked. There was no fists. There was no gunfire. There was none of that. So
I think it would have been nice if there was at least one fist.
Hey,
we should bring back
in the hood or something, or like a glass or something. But that's a crazy story for opening day.
Yeah, I've never gotten obviously into anything like that over there. Had some stupidity stories, but
yeah. You hang around enough, it'll happen.
Yeah,
and that's what experience is. You listen to this story, you listen to that, and sometimes you don't notice the signs of it until all of a sudden you have that experience, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, this is what happened. Hey, and you might decide to go and have it out with somebody, And by all means, go do that. But just understand there's risks involved. Everybody has guns, and it can go that other way.
It could get wild.
Yeah. But I've been down that road before, is the thing. I've been in sketchier situations than that. I've been in rougher ones, and I'm still sitting here, and we're still talking.
Yeah, I mean, you immerse your life into this, you're going to put yourself into some situations.
Yeah. There's stories I can't tell. I couldn't tell you, and I told you them stories.
I think you need a beer and start loosening up a little bit.
And, like I said, when I tell you about, people end up behind the Waffle House and stuff, these people tell me how things used to be. And that's just turkey hunting we're talking about.
Yeah.
You talk about duck hunting, in my town in Florida, there's a lake right there. And back in the old days, you were allowed to build permanent blinds out on the lake. And this was back before the Duck Dynasty days. This is way before that. Duck Dynasty, when that show came out, it ruined everything. It really did. When I'd go on opening day for duck season, there'd be 9 trucks there. The year after Duck Dynasty came out, the second season of Duck Dynasty, there was 91 trucks at the lake. 91. And they were lined up in every parking space. They were lined up down the road. It was just a total cluster.
Jesus.
And I had the kayak, and I drug it down through the woods, and I went out. There was a boat every 60 yards around the rim of that lake. And there's people that had no business being out there. They were shooting at bald eagles. They were shooting at turkey buzzards, whatever. They were just shooting. You heard metal, ting, ting, ting. You heard boats getting hit. We rewind. We go back before that. And I'm talking about the old days. And you sit and you talk to the old timers about how it used to be. They had those blinds out there. And this was my blind. And you didn't hunt this blind. And they had to respect, and they didn't. But sometimes things would happen. And they're telling me about how serious it was, how you'd come out there in the morning time, you'd see this big orange glow everywhere, and you saw, and there'd be a blind on fire. And these guys were setting their blinds on fire out there. There was guys shooting at each other out there.
Wild, wild west.
Yeah.
Wild west.
And and I know we're here to talk about turkeys, but I'm gonna tell you one more story. And
before you tell that story,
yes.
We're 45 minutes into it. Welcome to another episode of the Craving Wild podcast. Got Dan talking,
Eddie,
and Antonio,
and then we have a special guest this week. We're continuing on with the turkey theme. Go ahead, buddy.
I'm Chad Hodge, and there's no S at the end. People like to put an S at the end of my name. The Hodge is, I always call him my alter ego. If they put the S at the end, then that's the a-hole that we were talking about. That's when the bad guy comes out.
I'm going to put that in the title. Put Chad Hodge and then underneath no S.
No, I put 2 S on his name.
just to be
an ass.
S.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So,
all right, that's the second story.
The only, and this is a duck story, but the only reason that I'm telling this story is because there's a lot of crossover. Okay, the guys that hunt ducks, they usually hunt turkeys, they usually hunt deer. There's crossover, and I just want to throw this one out there because I just kind of want to give you an idea where I come from, okay, and how these cats handle things where I come from. There's that lake that I told you about. Well, across the highway and down the road is a smaller version of that lake. And when all the madness was happening, everybody was blazing away at that lake. This other lake was relatively untouched. So I went there, and I shot quite a few birds there. I shot 50 birds there in one season from just that lake. And, ringnecks, redheads, some different ones. And so it was almost like this little secret place. But I was going to the extreme. I wasn't boom, 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 boom. I wasn't doing that. I was taking a 20 gauge to be as quiet as possible, and I was firing one shot. Boom! And I'd wait 10, 20 minutes before I fired that second shot. I didn't want to hear people because that's how they are. When those Duck Dynasty New Age guys, they heard boom, 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 you'd see spotlights and boats, and they were coming to check it out. 7 o'clock in the morning, they're driving through people's decoys and stuff to go to wherever all the shooting was.
Oh, my God.
So
could you imagine?
It's wild, man. I got videos. I have on one of my albums on Facebook is Know Thy Enemy. And on Know Thy Enemy, I take pictures of all these various clowns and all this craziness, and I put them on there just so that people can look and see what the dark side looks like.
We could do a whole line of T-shirts with just mug shots.
And so this lake was kind of like the lifeblood over here. Well, it ended up becoming the lake that the locals went to, and some of the guys, and there's a local guy that I won't name his name, He's stuck in the 90s. I love this guy. He's got this like little Billy Ray Cyrus mullet, and he's got the gold chains, and the untucked, the unbuttoned shirt, and the chest hair sticking out, and he just looks like he steps straight like right out of a Tracy Lawrence video.
That's hilarious.
And that's him. And this dude drives these just beat up, just ratty pickup trucks, but he always had the nicest mud boats. He always had that really, really nice, pro drive, or he had that really nice mud motor that was like worth more than his house. And this dude, he knows where to kill ducks. He always would kill big bucks. That was just how he rolled. And so I was hunting a lake. I saw him. I had no problem with him being there. We went and we did our thing. Okay, and we hunted and we shot and everything was cool. There was this meth head that hung out at the lake, and he wore these coveralls and he had his plumbing van, and this dude would just pretend to go to work every day, and he'd just go and hang out and do meth or smoke crack all day. And
it's good.
And and the thing is that I don't judge people. I'm not like, well, it's just bum. Or I would go talk to the guy and have conversations with him and stuff. And then he was a nice guy, and he always felt like down because he was ashamed of it, So what this guy ended up doing was, I'm like, you're here all day, right? And he's like, yeah, man, pretty much. So I said, could you do me a favor? I said, anytime anybody comes here, could you just please keep note of where they parked their boats, where they were, where you heard the most shooting from? He's like, yeah, I can do that. So I'd come back the next day.
You can hire a meth.
I'd come back the next
Gotta
day.
use your resources.
And he would have this sheet of paper. And he would write down, he had every truck, every make and model, their license plate number, and where they went, how many shots they fired. And every day I had this itemized report. And so then what I would do is I would take that information, and I had a friend who was a law enforcement officer, and he would run the plates, and he would tell me where they were all from, whether they were from locally or whether they were from out of town and stuff, and we kind of figure out where all these guys were from. Well, this is important because, this dude had a sense of purpose. He was like, man, I'm helping the cause. And then he's like, hey, Chad, I want to show you this spot that I found. I was like, all right. So he said, it's down the road over here. He's like, there's this dirt road. He's like, I usually go smoke over there. And I got to the end of it, and he said, I found out you can wade out in the water there. He said there was a bunch of ducks there. So I was like, all right, let's go. So we hopped in his van, and we go driving down the road. And we hop out, and we go down this dirt road. And he wasn't lying. There was this really awesome cove, and there was redheads over there, and I was like, man, this is great. And you could wade out there. And so that ended up being a key spot. So then, he was so happy because he did good. He's like, did I do good? He sure did.
He's like a dog.
So we hop in the van. We drive back to the boat ramp in the parking area. We come pulling in, and there's this other van with a trailer on it. And I look, and I see inmates out there, and I see sheriff's deputies. And it was the sheriff's work gang. And they were there to mow and take care of stuff. Well, he starts wigging out. And he's like, oh, man, oh. And I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, oh, man, I left my stuff in that folded up newspaper. And so he's like, oh. So I was like, well, brother, I said, this is where our trip ends. And I got out. And if you ever saw that Homer Simpson meme where he disappears into the
grass,
bushes,
yeah.
that was Chad Hodge. So
that's funny.
So I'm like watching, and I see one of the inmates, and he's like over there with the weed whacker, and he finds this newspaper, and one guy, they pick up the trash and throw it away. Well, he picks up this paper, and I see him ruffling through it and stuff, and all of a sudden he's like looking around, and I was like, oh, I don't need to see any more of this, because that's the last thing I needed. His big bus, and here I am in the newspaper, the white van, the guy in the coveralls, and so I got out of there. Well, so this lake is clearly a very sketchy place, all right? But it's got birds in there. It's got redheads. It's got canvasbacks. It's got some different stuff. And so I kept going to this place, and this dude kept giving the information. Well, one day, something happened there that was real particularly heinous, we'll call it. We noticed that more people started kind of creeping into this place, and they started kind of showing up. Well, there were some dudes that came. They're from Hernando County, which is, down south. It's a little bit farther away. And this guy devised this really excellent plan. He went out there and he took trash cans. And he took these trash cans and he was sticking them in the shallow spots of the lake. And he was pouring gravel inside of them. And so the trash cans were sitting just at the water level. And they were sprinkled around all over the place. And he was bringing 5 and 6 and 7 guys. And he had an airboat. And so he'd drive this boat out. And he would come out there and he'd drop these guys off into these trash cans. And then you just see upper torso sticking up out of the water all over the place. And then he would drive the boat around the lake, stirring the birds up, and they'd fly around.
That's hysterical.
And they're blaze away.
Yeah.
So, A, that's highly illegal to do that. You can't drive birds, and B, you can't have sink boxes. This is what they did back in the old days for market hunting, and these cats are doing that. And so, A, these guys are from out of town. They're not locals. And B, they're being super illegal, and they're boom, 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 which is the opposite of what I've been trying to do. So I'm pretty fuming about this. Well, here comes my 90s retro friend, and he sees this, and he's like, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. Oh, and he's like wigging out. And so I was like, be cool. I was like, I got an idea. So we had, I have to be careful how I tell this story because, again, it starts getting sketchy. But when it started happening, we had the license plate numbers of all the vehicles, so we had an idea where these people were from, okay? My friend said, I'm going to fix this, and he left, and off he went. So he left, off he went, that was cool. My friend there who drove the white van, he was all wigged out. He's like, oh, what's going on? Oh, and I was like, this is messed up, man. So he's like, you want me to do something about it? And I knew what he meant. He meant like popping tires and stuff like that. I was like, no, don't worry about it. I was
Cutting
like,
valve stems.
We'll handle this. So a couple phone calls got made, and some local law enforcement ended up coming and looking. And I turned up, and a game warden told me, he's like, it was a few days later because they kept doing it. They kept doing it. He said, don't come here for a couple of days. All right. I was like, all right, no problem. So I would hunt on the other lake over there. Well, all of a sudden, like 2 days later, I hear sirens. And whoa, and all this craziness. I'm like, what in the hell's going on? So I go over to check it out and see what happened. There's like the paddy wagons there. There's cops everywhere. There's like helicopters, ambulances and stuff. And I'm like, what in the world's going on? Well, come to find out that the Game Commission decided they were going to bust these guys. They decided they were going to do that. But before they did, that morning, the boat came out and started dropping the guys off into the trash cans to do their hunt. Well, all of a sudden, there was all this screaming and carrying on and stuff. And come to find out, there was a water moccasin inside of every single one of those trash cans.
Oh, shit.
And these guys were getting dropped off in there. And these snakes, they were standing on snakes. They're getting bit in the ankles by these snakes and stuff. And they were jumping out of them into the water. And they were trying to shoot into the trash cans. So all this is going on all over the lake. All while the Game Commission comes in and hammers these guys. So they couldn't just haul the guys off because they had to have ambulances to treat them for snake bites and stuff. And I was like,
holy shit.
Yeah. And so deep down inside, I knew they had no idea how that happened, but I knew where those water moccasins came from because for a couple of days, I didn't see a certain person around, and you're not just overnight going to go, round up them to that amount. So I just let it go, and them guys never came back. We never saw them again.
Yeah, I would never come back. I would never come back again.
No, I'd probably move to not Australia. They got too many snakes there.
So, that was the dark side of things, and I tell that story. I know it's we're talking about turkey and whatnot, but that's how serious people take it. There's life and there's death, and then there's something that's much more important than that, and that's where some of these people are. And so when you head down to this place of turkey, like I'm talking about, you got your average enthusiasts like, oh, yeah, I might shoot a turkey. Oh, that'd be great if I did. And then there's people who are like, we are going down here. this is what's going to happen. We're going to do it like this. And so when you have those guys, you have the guys that are willing to go to the extremes of throwing water moccasins and trash cans, and then you got the guy that's willing to just road hunt and shoot out of the window. When you get them guys across paths, don't get in the middle of that one. Don't. So you have to make a choice. Where do you fit on this scale of things?
We need to find a method.
Yeah.
To help
might
us
be
out.
able
we were told we were right in the alley yesterday.
Yeah. We're in a hot spot.
Yeah. Where exactly is? That's funny. Yeah.
Laundromat. Usually laundromats in any small town. You can
Wawa?
find your guy.
Wawa. That's
Laundromat.
That's fine. Stunning, man. That's a great story. I hope that never happens to me in opening day. 'Cause
No, that's a
I'll-
fantastic story. I'm
I'll-
glad you told that story.
I'll probably quit turkey hunting. I'll be like, I can't deal with this fucking bullshit.
Just mind your manners.
Yeah.
That's the moral of the story. Be cool. Mind your manners.
Yeah.
Always be respectful where you go. If you're from out of town, if you're not from around there, don't go in there like you own the place, because those cats are out there.
Because there's some real gangsters that don't give a shit
Yeah.
about you.
That's funny.
That's just it.
I wish more people hunt that spot or those spots, because it's hard to hunt there, and you probably can tell who will stick to turkey hunting there more than anybody, because a couple days in there it's miserable.
Yeah.
Or even deer hunting there, it's complete misery. But yeah, it's a cool spot. I like it. It's just it's.
Well, we took,
Hold on a second. I lost you there.
Oh yeah, well, your cousin, didn't he? That's where we took him, right? Yeah. Now I'm even louder and scarier.
Yeah. We lost you in the mic there for a second.
I was turning down the wrong guy.
Yeah. Now you turn me off.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, now you're
That's
done.
where the meth head comes in.
Yeah.
Hire him, and they're on the soundboard.
Isn't that why we have Gemily? Is Gemily the meth head?
Everybody has a role to play.
Yeah. That's funny. I think, did we take my cousin there? I don't even remember.
Yeah. We did. Because
For turkey?
well,
Not for turkey.
No, not turkey, but pheasants.
Pheasants.
We hunted ducks in the morning.
Yeah.
And then we took him there, and that was like a
Yeah.
really cool day.
Yeah.
We had a really good time, and his experience there, and that kind of is where this goes full circle. His experience there is what made him say, "This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to go get my hunter safety course, and I want to do this." So
Yeah.
his memory of that place is a stark, opposite of the stuff that we're talking about. We're talking about how terrible it is and crazy, and
Yeah.
and to him, like, he looks back on that day and says, "Man, that was one of the greatest days of my life."
But he got lucky that day. They literally stalked that spot with pheasants, okay? And nobody knew about it. And then we showed up, and he was the dog. He was putting more birds than the dogs.
Really?
He was just like, and I was just like, "Hey, Louis, just go over there." And he would walk, and I was like, "Holy crap!" And he was like, "Well, I'm gonna come hunt next year." I'm like, "Yeah, don't."
Is the same cousin with 150 or with Trump?
Yeah. The only cousin that I've come to hunt. Yeah, he's a good luck charm for me at least. But yeah, he got his. I took him back.
Can you rent him out for?
I can. I probably can. He probably would, do it.
Yeah, that was a good day. I mean, duck wise, you got to experience that, and then and I hate the fact that the way pheasant season and duck season don't overlap the way they used to.
Yeah.
And that's something that should be addressed, separately. You dedicate some segment of one of your podcasts to that, so the listeners can, if they could all write in at the same time. The fact that duck is in during buck season and stuff instead of with pheasants. I don't know too many people that are duck hunting while deer season's in.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people. You can only shoot 2 pheasants in a day, so what are you gonna do with the rest of your day?
Yeah,
Wouldn't it
nothing.
be great to go at least be able to go duck hunt? So
Squirrel, maybe?
Yeah.
That's about it.
yeah. And I plan my trips and everything around where can I get the maximum time in the woods. And I used to be able to, that week after Halloween was it. You got to duck hunt, you got to pheasant hunt, everything was cool. Now duck is out for 3 weeks after that, and so now I have to go way down, starting to get closer to Thanksgiving if I wanted to overlap them. And and that bites, because that day was awesome. We went out and sat in a swamp in the morning, and it was like Gunfighter City, mallards and woodies and the whole 9 yards.
I shot towards a woodpecker. That's when I started hunting. Yeah, that's when I started hunting ducks. Yeah, that was like the first year.
Yeah,
and you got us into some woodies, and then I was like, okay, and then all I saw was just shadows of birds, and I was just like, I'm shooting that one. It was a woodpecker.
And that's my favorite way to hunt is hunt the swamps for woodies, just me and waders. I don't have all the decoys and the boats and all that stuff, mainly because of the whole story we just talked about. I try to avoid all that carnage. After the whole Duck Dynasty deal, I decided it was time to go into, the swamps and spend my time there, and I just prefer doing that.
Yeah.
Sitting in a blind with sausages cooking and all that stuff's not my scene. I'd rather be more in your face with it and have more activity.
Well, I think to be a public land hunter, you have to be able to adapt.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know.
100%. Nobody has the privilege of having a kitchen in their duck blind all the time.
It's pretty much.
Dude, some of them Instagrams are like, are those guys where they have those like what do they call them, like bunkers almost?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
That's cool. It's that's more that frat bro kind of, the old school like guys is like they like to socialize and shoot some ducks all at the same time. And that's cool if that's what you're into. I hate to bash people for what they like to do. I just don't want people to think that's the only way.
That's what it is.
Yeah. The rich man sport. Because duck hunting was always the rich man sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got to have the boat, and you got to have, all this expensive stuff, and a dog that obeys your commands and backs your trailer up for you and all that stuff. And, and
a dog backs your trailer for you? That's awesome.
I mean, you're paying that much money for one. You better be doing something.
Right.
Writing license plate numbers down at least, and here I am teaching you a cheaper way to do that, and so.
Yeah, it is sad that you're saying that if you go like to social media, right?
Right.
You are led to believe that that's the only way. And if you do it other way, you're like chastised about it. You're like, man, that's not correct. That's not the way. You should it's like people use decoys for dogs, but you shouldn't do it for this animal, and then it's a weird thing. But
you go on my Instagram. How many decoys do you ever see?
Yeah, none.
And how many dead ducks do you see? You know what I mean? And for pheasants, you'll see a dog here and there, but for the most part, I mean, for me, duck hunting, you can get an old turkey vest, you rip the seat off of that thing, you throw your Gatorade in the back of it. We talk about superstition. When I duck hunt, it's not Gatorade, it's Powerade.
Oh shit!
Why is it Powerade?
What flavor?
Yellow, lemon lime.
Ooh, that's a good flavor.
It's lemon lime, but it's always Powerade because when you hold your fingers over letters, it spells out "pow," and that's what you want your gun to do. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
And where I hunt, you got the word gator on there. You don't talk about gators because they make life real difficult. So, and that's just it. And that's another odd thing. And I'll ask you guys this. Why can't I find lemon lime Powerade anywhere in Pennsylvania? Like anywhere I go, I cannot find lemon lime like a small bottle.
Everybody likes the fruit punch and the blue.
The blue one.
Yeah.
The blue one is the famous one.
Yeah.
Listen,
Well, it's because it's in all the commercials.
Well, it's just weird to me that lemon lime is like banned, is like what because like I actively am looking for it, and last year somehow I went into some really bizarre Dollar General up in Mount Pocono that was like cash only. They didn't have debits, they didn't have this and that. And I go in there, and they had these 4-packs of lemon lime Powerade. So I was like, oh, and I got one. And I was getting my butt whooped all week on turkeys. And I got that Powerade, and I popped that baby off, and I threw it in my vest. And next morning, I shot a big gobbler, just like that.
Shit.
There's a Dollar General down the road if you want to just snoop around.
I'm going to have to, and so.
Maybe it's too tropical for these parts. They're like, no, this is too much for us. I want to feel like it's winter all day.
I went to Turkey Hill down the road, and like I go in there and I look, and they have blue, they have red, and that was it. And I went into CVS up in Cresco earlier today, and I was like, oh, maybe they'll have it here. I walk in there, they didn't even have Powerade at all. They had Gatorade, and it's like, man, and I personally like body armor. That stuff is like amazing. That's
so good,
and it makes you feel good.
Yeah,
I've been into the Gator Light lately.
Yeah.
Gator Light lately has been good.
That's
for me.
real good.
Is that the one with all the caffeine?
No.
No.
That's a new one.
It's their version of Pedialyte.
It's the one in like the square bottle.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's watered down, but it has way more sodium in it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can taste the
More-
salt in it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
more electrolytes.
Yep, I enjoy it.
And that's what the roofers. You want to know what's good. If you want to know what's good, go look at what the roofers are drinking.
Especially in Florida.
Yes.
Especially
yeah.
in
Yeah.
I'm a tree guy, so that's kind of what I'm drinking.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, you're right there in that realm of being miserable in the
Yeah.
summertime.
Yeah.
Well, our early duck season, our teal season is September, and it's 100, 105 degrees when you're out there, and you're paddling around a lake in a kayak. And I remember how you're rusty, man. You're coming out of the summer, and all of a sudden you're paddling through lily pads and stuff. And next thing you know, your arms are like seizing up, and the muscles and everything, and you're all dehydrated, and you got like that dehydration headache and all that stuff. And you drink Gatorade, you drink that stuff, and you still felt bad. Well, then for what this body armor comes out, and I was like, man, let me try this stuff. So I got my Yeti bottle, and I poured 2 real ice cold ones in there, and I go out, and it was the first day of the teal season. I'm paddling around, I'm drinking this stuff, I'm drinking it. I paddled around that whole lake, the whole lake, and I shot birds, and I'm paddling through lily pads and stuff. And the first thing I noticed was my arms weren't seizing up, and I was like barely sweating. And by the end of the hunt, I get out of the boat ramp, and I felt amazing. And I said, this is the stuff right here. This is it.
Are you listening to this,
It's the
Body Armor?
coconut
We're
water.
sponsoring.
It's the coconut water.
Yeah.
Oh,
We went through a
coconut
stint of,
water.
not even a stint, we're still kind of drinking it, but just straight coconut water.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love coconut water.
Yeah.
On a hot day, checking
Do
cameras.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Oh,
always
yeah,
stop and get it when we go to
100%.
Delaware.
That shit makes me want to puke.
Really?
Yeah, I can't stand it for some reason. The
Well,
taste?
well, I tell you what, when I went down on our cruise and I got to drink out of a coconut,
Yeah.
oh my goodness,
Oh,
I was in heaven.
maybe that's what it is. I did it so much when I was a kid. I don't like mango either.
I'm not a big
Yeah.
mango person. I'm like,
But I'm like, it's like the most tropical, the 2 most tropical fruits there. I
because
hate
that was
them.
a bucket list item. I wanted to drink out of a coconut with clear blue water around me.
Yeah.
and I did it, and it was like, this is awesome.
Was it cold?
No.
Oh, sometimes they sell it cold.
Well, I did get a couple. He had them in the fridge,
Yeah, yeah.
and I got one with alcohol in it,
Mm.
and bro, like whoa. So he made me drink half of it, and then he filled the other half back up with rum.
Interesting.
And I took a sip out. He's like, "You want more?" I was like, "No,
no,
No.
we're good.
like, bro."
That fucking face. Everybody has put that face like,
Oh, yeah.
Way too much.
The face of mistake. That's what it is.
I'm good. That's crazy. That's good. I just don't like the taste of it.
Oh, I love it. It's
Like coconut, like the actual
like coconut
meat?
shavings.
like the
yeah.
meat of it, I can eat that. But the water,
I prefer the water over the
interesting.
meats.
Well,
I just
That's
like the
good.
fact that a bucket list item was to drink from a coconut. Something you could literally go down to the grocery store and buy.
but
The
blue
location.
water.
The
blue
location,
water.
yeah.
Gotta have the
Okay,
location.
Location,
All right.
location,
It was
location.
the tropical. It's the ambiance.
The scenery, yeah.
The ambiance. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, my bucket list items are like borderline illegal. Like you're like things you just can't even
I see
do.
what you're saying.
You
That's
know?
hilarious.
And you know, mine's like a localized one. All right, and it's like usually there's like this dark list, but in the scheme of things, this isn't so bad. But this is a hypothetical. All right.
Okay.
Here's a
Hypothetical.
hypothetical. To me, it's something I want to know the answer to. All right, because do you guys remember
How does meth feel?
No.
Oh, okay.
Do you
Sorry.
Ask
remember
Gemily.
Ma Barker? You ever heard of Ma Barker?
No.
You never heard of Ma Barker? Her sons, they went, back in the 20s, they drove all over the Midwest shooting up banks and stuff, and this huge crime
Oh,
spree.
Oh, dude, I thought you said
Yeah.
Bob Barker. I was
No,
like,
no,
is that
not
the guy
Bob.
that's on the
No,
TV
but
when you're
Price
like
is
seven?
Right.
Jeopardy. He did Jeopardy or whatever.
Price is right.
Price
Price
is
is
right.
right.
Price
Price
is
is
right.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
everybody knows Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. Well, in the same time frame, there was Ma Barker, and her sons. She had these 3 sons, and she had this boyfriend, and they drove around the Midwest. They drove all around, just shooting up banks and robbing, and then so the FBI, the feds were chasing them all over the place. Well, eventually, they got away, and they came down to Florida to a town near where I live. Okay, and they were holding up in this house. It was right outside of Lake Weir. And Lake Weir is kind of like that crazy duck hunting hole that I told you about. So there was this 2-story house is on the lake, and you know this is before cell phones. This is before any of that stuff. So they were hanging out and they were living life there. Well, they were also doing lots of opium and stuff, and so like the sons were always whacked out, and they'd go around. The boyfriend, Ma Barker's boyfriend, he was doing all this opium, and he goes outside, and the lake's right there, and he kept seeing this alligator out there in the lake, and so he sees this alligator, and he reaches a point where he thinks this alligator is following him. Okay, so one day he just walks out and he sees this alligator, and he thinks the alligator is talking to him.
Oh shit!
And so he goes
some
back.
good drugs.
He goes back in the house, and he comes out with a Tommy gun. He comes out with a Tommy gun, and he shoots the living hell out of this alligator. And I watched this movie, and he's shooting this alligator from nose to tail, and the water is going up in the air like those little fountains at Epcot Center, and it's red water going up in the air like this. Okay, so the people in the town, they can hear across the lake, and they're like, what in the hell is that? So they contact the FBI and say, hey, there's somebody shooting machine guns out here. Well, during one of their robberies, and I think like it was Kansas maybe, they found a little piece of paper, and it had an address on it. And that address was the address for that house in Florida. So the FBI just rounds up all these G-men and all these guys, and they come on down to Ocklawaha, and they circle around the house, and they shoot that house up, and they killed them graveyard dead. They shot him up. Ma Barker, deader than Fanny's Fried Chicken, just shot the place up. 2,000 bullet holes in his house. And it's all because he shot that damn alligator. And they call him Gator Joe. And there's like a sandwich at the local restaurant called the Gator Joe. And all stuff.
Of course there is.
Out of the whole thing, the one thing that intrigued me the most was, if you shot an alligator with a Tommy gun, would that water really go up in the air? And would it be
so
red?
curious where this was going.
So
That's the longest fucking turnaround to a fucking story.
He did warn us that he would make big loops and come back to the.
Holy shit!
you have to have the backstory to appreciate the end.
Yes.
If I just said, to go down this lake and shoot an alligator, you'd be like, oh yeah, what's
that's
so
cool.
cool about it?
So what round does the Tommy gun shoots?
45.
Yeah.
We can try it.
She just showed. Gemily just showed me a picture of Ma Barker, and she looks pretty gangster. She's holding a Tommy gun with a cigarette out of her mouth.
Oh,
so
yeah.
shit.
yeah.
And you see if you can find pictures of the house. The house was riddled with bullets, just bullets in every square inch of the place. And the crazy thing was, up till like a few years ago, you could drive up to the house and you could stand on the trash cans and look over the fence around, and you could see all the bullet holes in the house.
That's
Oh,
crazy.
no shit.
And the chair she was sitting in is still in the house, all blood stained, and there's like all stuff. A few years ago, they actually raised the house. They put it on a barge. They took it across the lake. They moved it, and the county's working on turning it into a museum where you can come in there and look at it. And it's
Interesting.
got
That's
artifacts
nice.
and all that.
Wow.
Yeah. So that'll be something really cool. And Tommy guns just aren't so easy to come by. Now,
No.
a friend of mine, he's got a Class 3 license, and they have a Tommy gun.
Oh my
They
god.
have one.
Well, but I don't think it has to be the Tommy gun. I think you just have to be 45. Shooting in the water.
Yeah, but you got
You got to go all the way.
Yeah.
It's the fact that
gold plated.
I'm talking about not the what the Bin Laden version, like one of those AK-47s. No, Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
It's got to be the Tommy gun, because I'm telling you, from nose to tail, you're talking about a bullet like every 4 inches hitting, and the water was going up and down, up and down. And it
Well,
was
you can
red.
shoot with a 45 and see if it does that. No,
That's very anticlimactic.
Yeah?
I think I'd be very disappointed with it.
I shot water.
You would get your answer, but I don't think he's looking for.
Yeah,
he
I
wants the whole show.
tuk, tuk,
Yeah.
tuk, tuk.
Yeah. I want to see it going up and down like one of them old timey organs,
Emily, can we make this happen legally here in Pennsylvania?
The alligator situation is kind of.
Fuck the alligator. I'll build one out of cardboard.
You just get a Class 3 license over
with
there.
red paint. With
Yeah,
red
yeah.
paint on it. That's hilarious. I've never shot a bullet in the water that went.
Yeah, I guess there's got to be science involved with this, with the angle of deflection. And,
Maybe.
Where's the MythBusters when you need them?
Yeah.
Right.
So we gotta measure where her chair was where she was shooting the
No,
alligator.
he was just
He- yeah.
standing out
He was-
there.
yeah.
It was just
She
him.
got shot in the chair in the house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he survived. The boyfriend did. He
Get
ended up
out
going
Of
to
course,
jail.
of course.
Yeah, he ended up like ratting on him and stuff. But
Is he still alive?
He was super
No,
high.
this was like the
at that point.
1920s.
Oh
So
shit! Oh, a long time ago.
This is way back.
No
there.
bullet will take me.
I was gonna say we got to get him on the podcast.
That's fucking funny.
Yeah, it's just
Do like an
opium.
outlaw series.
Yeah.
So do you have any?
Hit me with 7 shot. I don't care.
7 shots.
So do you have any bucket list about shooting an alligator?
Oh, I'd love to shoot an alligator.
Okay, 45s.
Bang stick.
Whatever.
Let's go bow fishing for him.
Okay. Oh,
They do
bow
that.
fishing an alligator?
Flamethrower.
Of course, yeah. Let's
You always go there.
I don't know what my obsession is with Florida and like reptiles and flamethrowers. It just seems to be a thing for me.
I have pictures. I got one picture somewhere on Instagram where you can see the teeth marks down the side of my kayak from where the alligator attacked my boat while I was duck hunting.
No.
Yeah, see,
And,
that's why I don't fuck with that shit. I can't do that.
No.
But hey, that's the thing is that was more my fault than anything. It wasn't like this alligator just said, "Oh, there's a boat, let me get him." I was paddling out to a part of the lake where I knew that the birds were roosted, and I knew that they were going to fly out of there to filter out to the smaller ponds. And I knew that if for 5 solid minutes, you just see the sky black with birds leaving that lake. It's just nonstop. I got video of it. It's just this line, and it's thousands of ringnecks and divers leaving the lake. And so I was making my way towards there so I could be underneath them. And they built some movie theater down the road and some complex, and they got all the parking lot lights, and they didn't used to be there. It used to be pitch black when you went out there. Well, now there's this strange orange glow that's over the lake. And so I'm paddling out there, and I can see all these birds on the water. If you shine a spotlight, you'd see so many ducks you couldn't even see water. You just see heads and eyes.
Oh, shit.
And the thing is, they like to leave 15 minutes before shooting light, and they just fly.
Of course they do.
And so I'm trying real hard to get out there, and the strange orange glows over the top of the water. And so I'm going, and all of a sudden I see this big black dot to my left, and it's kind of going in the same direction. And so we're going, and all of a sudden we intersected, and it was a gator's head. And we intersected, and all of a sudden he wigged out, and he starts opening his mouth, and he's hammering the side of it, and he's just biting away. And I had my paddle, because you can't shoot at that angle. You can't shoot, or else you're going to be in the water with him. So I had my paddle, and I'm nailing him on top of the head. 1, 2, 3. And on the third one, all of a sudden, he splashed and disappeared, and that was it. But now I got, like, these teeth marks, like, going all down the side. Like, right next to where my foot pegs are, you can see.
Fuck no.
And
That's some gangster shit.
Fuck no. I have encounters with Florida gators and saltwater croc soup, but never that close.
No.
it's only happened twice, and it's weird because that one was more my fault.
Twice. Once
Well-
is too many fucking times.
Well, later in January, if the temperature hovers around 70 degrees or more, if you don't have that really cold winter, then the gators don't just disappear off into the woods. They don't just go, dormant and disappear. If it stays cold, you don't see them.
Yeah.
But if it stays warm, you do.
Okay.
And it's 70 degrees is the magic marker. And there's been years where I've come down there after hunting here in January, and there's been ice in coves on the lake. But then there's years where it stays around 70. And what happens is they stay active, and now they're burning calories that they wouldn't ordinarily burn because they're supposed to be sleeping
At that time.
yeah. Well, now they're burning calories, and now you gotta replace those calories. You got and it starts getting a little hairy, and then you start running into the possibility of an extra breeding cycle, and that's where the first time I was just waiting.
That's our mascot.
Yeah.
All right. So the first time it happened was I'm paddling along, and I saw a little flock of ringnecks, and I got my binoculars up and my paddle sideways across my lap on top, and I'm looking at these birds, and all of a sudden it sounded like Ken Griffey Jr. just hit the nose of my kayak with a bat. Wham! And my paddle goes flying up in the air and comes right back down. I look, and there's this mouth just sticking up right over the nose of my kayak.
Just pissed.
And it just, like, this bit around it, and it's hissing, and and it backs up hissing with its mouth open, and it goes under the water still hissing, and you just see the bubbles coming up. And I was like, it kind of sprung me to life. Well, then all of a sudden, I just happened to look over, and over in the grass reeds to my left, there was a little alligator this long just in the grass.
Yeah.
And I went in between the two of them, and that's what happened. So,
Big mama.
in January, that's not supposed to happen. But it did.
Yeah, I guess it's really no different than bears around here.
Yeah.
Man, you get in between bears. It's just a different. We're just not used to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm used to it.
I'm not. We don't have a lot of alligators around here.
No, none.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
So we're gonna do a very hard transition.
Yeah.
Okay.